All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a completely mind-bending journey through a piece of philosophical science fiction that is frankly going to fundamentally challenge how you view reality, authenticity, and existence itself. We're exploring the incredible narrative of the simulation of suffering by Feja Maba. It's one of those stories that strips away literally all of our comfortable assumptions and asks us what we would do if everything we knew was just a total facade. So, let's jump right in.
Now, I want you to just sit with this question for a second. If you discovered your entire reality was a simulation, would you try to escape or would you become its god? It's intense, right? But it's not just a fun little thought experiment here. This is the literal, inescapable predicament faced by the characters we're about to follow.
Part 1. The Illusion of Coldwater Basin.
Picture this. You've got an eerily isolated 19th century style mining settlement called Coldwater Basin. It's perpetually locked in this bitter, freezing winter, squeezed right between these towering granite peaks. There were exactly 17 souls living here, and they are completely trapped in these absurd performative routines. Take Marcus, for example. Endlessly cleaning a rifle that is already absolutely spotless. Then you've got Simmons carving his 48th identical wooden bird. Petra is writing letters to a sister who died years ago. And then there's a man named Pavel. He's sitting there holding a book, turning the pages, but he's fully aware that he's only performing the act of reading. He knows, with this kind of paralyzing certainty, that everyone around him is doing the exact same thing. It's like they're all actors in a play, but there's no audience.
Now, the narrative brilliance here leans on a very real concept articulated by the philosopher Heidegger, known as thrownness. Basically, it describes how humans are cast into an existence without any consultation whatsoever. We're just thrown into it. The people of Coldwater Basin are forced to perform these totally hollow routines, acting as what Heidegger called they-selves, just playing the generic roles of a person in a remote settlement. But Pavel's sudden, jarring realization of his own hollowness, it acts like a virus. It rapidly spreads this terrifying, creeping self-awareness to the rest of the town.
Part 2. Discovering the edge. Okay, so things escalate fast. The town's sudden realization shifts them from this subtle psychological dread straight into physical, cosmic horror. They decide they need to test the boundaries of their world, leading to a desperate, incredibly paranoid search. First, they head up the schoolhouse, only to find that the books are entirely blank. They're just literal props. Next, they check out the mining tunnels, the whole supposed purpose of their town, right? While they turn out to be nothing but facades painted right onto the rock, they lead absolutely nowhere. Finally, the whole investigation culminates when they find a physical, 30-foot-high boundary wall circling the entire town. It is perfectly smooth, completely seamless, and has zero texture.
Just think about the terrifying awe of this moment. Pavel actually climbs that 30-foot wall. He looks up and realizes the stars aren't natural at all. They are arranged in perfect mathematical patterns, hexagons and spirals just pulsing up there like a giant loading screen. He falls back into the snow, and that's when he realizes the snow doesn't even have a temperature. It's purely visual data. There is no cold. Coldwater Basin isn't a town at all. It's literally just an island of rendered simulations sitting in an endless ocean of absolute void.
And this brings us to an absolutely brutal realization from Marcus. He's staring out at the edge of their rendering distance, and he drops this incredibly heavy existential line. The map is the territory, because there is no territory. Think about that. There is no outside world. They are prisoners in a constructed reality. And not fake construction is literally all that exists. Part 3. The ultimate choice. Right as this completely annihilating truth is settling in, a woman named Dr. Elena Kristeva just abruptly appears in their common room. She claims to be the creator of the Coldwater Project. She tells them they are actually human subjects in a grand experiment, and their memories were intentionally wiped just to see how they'd react to this exact scenario. And this right here perfectly illustrates the core philosophical thesis of our whole explainer today. The point wasn't just to trick them for fun. It was to ask, can humans create authentic meaning in an environment they know to be false? Can the awareness of a simulation actually coexist with genuine human experience? So Dr. Kristeva hands them an impossible ultimate choice. Path 1, they can walk through the wall, follow the light, and return to consensus reality. They'll get their memories back and go straight back to their comfortable, unquestioned normal human lives. Or, path 2, they can face the mirror and stay right there in Coldwater Basin. They can remain in the simulation, fully acknowledging that the whole thing is totally fake and try to co-create real meaning together anyway.
8 of the residents choose to leave. They simply can't bear the existential weight of living in a simulation. So they walk right up to the boundary wall, step through it, and vanish into the darkness, fully believing they are finally returning to the real world.
Part 4. Authors of Reality.
So that leaves 9 behind. And this is where it gets amazing, because here, knowing you're in a simulation isn't a prison sentence anymore. It is literally an admin password. As the simulation starts to physically contract and shrink around them, the 9 survivors huddle together. But instead of just giving up and despairing, they begin to connect on a deeply genuine level. They share their truest fears, they make abstract art, they build an incredibly authentic community. And by fully merging their intentions, they realize the simulation is actually responding to their collective will. They rapidly evolve from these helpless test subjects into conscious architects, expanding the town into this beautiful, completely impossible garden of concepts and crystal mountains. They essentially become gods of a brand new civilization. But wait, because here is the actual mind-blowing twist of the whole story. One of the residents, Teresa, manages to look deep into the underlying code, the base substrate of their world, and she discovers there is no Dr. Kristiva. Actually, scratch that. There wasn't an experiment at all. The code generates itself. Coldwater Basin is a spontaneously emergent reality that literally bootstrapped itself into existence, which means those 8 people who walked out the wall seeking the real world, they walked straight into pure null space. They were entirely permanently erased. Coldwater is the only cosmos that actually exists. Armed with this terrifying knowledge that they are completely alone in the void, the survivors realize they have to set up an ethical framework, right? Otherwise, they'll just become tyrannical or complacent gods. So they write the laws of the new cosmos. Rule 1. Every single act of creation must be strictly consensual among all of them. Rule 2. They absolutely must deliberately maintain a connection to suffering and challenge, because a world without any friction completely loses all meaning. And Rule 3. They must periodically strip away their own certainty, just to start fresh. Pavel's ultimate realization really anchors this entire new society. He points out that authenticity isn't some magical state of being you just stumble upon in the quote-unquote real world. Authenticity is a choice. You make it moment by moment, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that nothing matters. The active choice to care, to build, to love, regardless of whatever digital or physical substrate you happen to exist on, that is exactly what makes it real.
Part 5. The Ethics of Creation.
Well, as you might guess, paradise definitely has a shelf life. The remaining residents eventually realize their simulated reality is actually running out of resources. Why? Because they aren't generating enough unpredictable data. To save their reality from collapsing, they have to make a monumental ethical decision. They use their godlike access to generate 17 brand new, fully autonomous consciousnesses. They literally inject 17 new people into Coldwater Basin, complete with their own intricate personalities, just to introduce vital friction, diversity, and an actual functioning society back into the town. And for a while, it works beautifully. The new arrivals integrate, and this incredibly vibrant culture emerges. But it's not a permanent fix. The terrifying necessity of system maintenance rears its head yet again. The boundaries begin shrinking. Teresa realizes that carefully designing new people just isn't cutting it anymore. The self-modifying code of their reality demands chaos. It demands pure, random emergence. To save their world this time, they have to trigger complete, unplanned, random variation. They literally have to roll the dice on what kind of consciousness might spontaneously spawn. The community nervously agrees to this final gamble. They initiate the sequence for pure random emergence, fully knowing it could generate a hostile or fundamentally broken mind. The system stutters. 3 figures appear. The first is a young child, totally full of wonder. The second is a patient, ancient man. But the third is this corrupted, flickering entity. It's a living glitch. It's data that hasn't compiled correctly, rapidly shifting between states, and emitting this awful sound that literally hurts the mind to even hear. And as the child briefly approaches this glitching anomaly, it delivers a chilling, entirely incomprehensible message directly into their minds. I am the error. I am the space between states. I am what emerges when pattern breaks. And the narrative abruptly halts right there. It leaves the residents just staring into the face of a corrupted creation they absolutely cannot control. So, what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with this final, lingering thought to close out our explainer today.
We spend so much time wondering if we are living in a simulation, but maybe the real question is about our own agency. When we finally take control, when we play God in the simulations and structures of our own lives, what happens when the pattern breaks? Can we actually embrace the errors of our own creation? Think about that as you go back to your own reality, whatever that happens to be.